The day you signed your first employment contract, you did not just sell your physical time. You mathematically surrendered the most valuable compounding years of your existence to a system explicitly designed to keep your bank account completely empty. Society has successfully programmed you to view a stable corporate paycheck as the ultimate financial achievement. You are conditioned to believe that trading 40 hours a week for a predictable direct deposit is the definition of safety. But the clinical, undeniable truth of the modern economy is deeply disturbing. A safe salary is not a reward for your hard work. It is the exact, carefully calculated price an institution pays you to permanently forget your own capacity for leverage. You are not building a career. You are renting your mind at a wholesale discount to build someone else's generational empire. The global financial infrastructure is currently undergoing a violent restructuring, and the window to escape this linear trap is closing faster than you realize. If you click away from this video and choose to blindly trust the traditional roadmap of corporate loyalty, you are voluntarily accepting the absolute cost of inaction. You will spend the next 40 years bleeding your peak physical and mental energy for a fragile salary that barely outpaces inflation, until you are eventually liquidated on a Friday afternoon spreadsheet. The price of ignoring this reality today is the permanent loss of your future sovereignty. But if you stay, I will dismantle the psychological architecture of the salary trap. I will reveal the classified blueprint the 1% use to completely reject the illusion of a monthly paycheck, bypass the corporate slow lane, and build unbreakable, permissionless equity. This is the financial truth that the corporate matrix desperately hopes you never discover. The illusion of corporate security. To understand why your safe salary is mathematically destroying you, you must first understand the fundamental concept of life energy. When you go to work, you are not simply performing tasks in exchange for paper currency. You are exchanging a finite, non-renewable resource, your physical time and cognitive bandwidth, for money. Every dollar you earn represents a fraction of your actual life energy. When you accept a fixed salary, you are agreeing to put a definitive, unchangeable price cap on the value of your existence. The middle class accepts this terrible trade because they crave security. But as financial psychologist Morgan Housel observes, relying on a single corporate paycheck is the ultimate illusion of safety. It actually creates a massive single point of failure. When you engineer a life where your entire survival, your housing, and your family's well-being depend entirely on one HR department, one manager's mood, or one quarterly earnings report, you are not secure. You are living on the absolute edge of an abyss. A salary feels safe because it is predictable, but predictability is not security. When you are an employee, your income is linearly capped, but your risk is infinite. You carry all the localized risk of losing your livelihood with zero notice due to a macroeconomic shift you had absolutely nothing to do with. The corporation owes you nothing. When a crisis hits, the board of directors will ruthlessly protect their shareholders, not their employees. By prioritizing the illusion of a steady paycheck, you sacrifice your financial margin of safety. You become entirely dependent on an institution that views you as a replaceable line item. You traded your absolute freedom for a false sense of comfort, and in doing so, you handed over the control of your life energy to a system that will extract every ounce of value from you until you are obsolete. Why the 1% reject monthly paychecks? If the traditional salary roadmap is a guaranteed path to financial fragility, how do the true elite operate? Why do they build massive, unbreakable wealth while the highly educated middle class drowns in consumer debt and workplace anxiety? Because the 1% understand the fatal mathematical flaw of the slow lane. Author M.J. DeMarco defines the traditional path of getting a job and trading time for money as the slow lane roadmap. The absolute limit of this roadmap is that it relies on a variable that cannot be scaled: your time. You only have 24 hours in a day. No matter how hard you work, no matter how many degrees you acquire, and no matter how much you optimize your morning routine, if your income is directly tied to your physical presence, your wealth is mathematically capped. The elite do not want a higher salary. They completely reject the concept of trading time for money. They want equity. They want ownership. They want a percentage of the system itself. When you negotiate for a 5% raise at your corporate job, you are fighting for scraps. You are begging the gatekeepers to value your life energy slightly higher. The wealthy do not beg for raises. They build assets that scale infinitely without their physical involvement. They understand that a salary is designed to pay you just enough to prevent you from quitting. while extracting 10 times that amount in value from your labor. If you generate $1 million of value for a corporation, they will pay you $100,000 and convince you that you should be grateful for the opportunity. The elite see this arrangement for what it truly is, a scam. They refuse to be the engine that powers someone else's compounding machine. They starve their egos, reject the synthetic prestige of corporate titles, and focus entirely on acquiring ownership in systems that multiply value while they sleep. The sunk cost of renting your mind. The most devastating cost of the corporate matrix is not merely financial. The true catastrophe is the psychological decay that occurs when you spend decades renting your mind to a boss. There is a psychological phenomenon known as reactance. It states that humans have a deep biological need for control and autonomy. When you are forced to do something, even something you might have initially enjoyed, you begin to deeply resent it. Doing a job you love on a schedule you do not control, dictated by a manager you do not respect, eventually feels identical to doing a job you hate. This is why something dies inside you when you accept a safe salary. You slowly lose your agency. You are trained to wait for instructions, to ask for permission to speak, to request time off to visit your own family, and to fear making mistakes. The corporate environment systematically drains your entrepreneurial spirit and replaces it with compliant mediocrity. And because you have invested so much time climbing this specific corporate ladder, you fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. You convince yourself that you cannot leave because you have already dedicated 5, 10, or 15 years to this industry. You accept a toxic culture and 80-hour work weeks simply because you feel you must justify the time you have already spent. You trap yourself in a miserable reality out of a misplaced sense of loyalty to a past version of yourself. You allow a decision you made when you were 22 years old to completely dictate the financial and emotional reality of your 40-year-old self. You are defending a burning house just because you paid for the matches. The comfort of the paycheck becomes a psychological prison, blinding you to the fact that your peak cognitive years are being harvested by an entity that will replace you the moment a cheaper alternative is found. Building equity instead of trading time. To break free from this design slavery, you must fundamentally change your relationship with leverage. You must stop trying to become a better employee and start acting like an architect. Investor Naval Ravikant notes that the modern digital economy has unlocked the ultimate wealth-building mechanism, permissionless leverage. For the vast majority of human history, leverage was strictly guarded by gatekeepers. You needed money to build a factory, or you needed permission to hire hundreds of employees. If you lacked capital or status, you had no choice but to rent your time for a salary. But today, the highest forms of leverage are code and media. Software, algorithms, and digital content are armies of invisible, tireless workers. They do not sleep. They do not complain. They do not ask for benefits. They scale infinitely with zero marginal cost. And the most terrifying part for the traditional corporate establishment is that you do not need anyone's permission to create them. You do not need an Ivy League degree to write a piece of code. You do not need a manager's approval to record a video, publish a newsletter, or build a decentralized brand. Every time you write a line of code or create a piece of media, you are building an asset that works for you 24 hours a day. While the middle class exhausts themselves trying to look busy in a cubicle to protect their fragile salaries, the elite are quietly building digital real estate. They understand that a resume is simply a historical document listing all the people who previously owned your time. A portfolio of permissionless leverage, however, is a mathematical guarantee that nobody will ever own your time again. You must stop renting your intellect and start building your own compounding machine. Escaping the zero-sum salary game. The greatest intrinsic value of capital has absolutely nothing to do with buying luxury goods, financing sports cars, or signaling your synthetic status to strangers. The highest, most profound dividend that money pays is the ability to give you absolute, unyielding control over your own time. As Morgan Housel eloquently states, true wealth is waking up every single morning with the sovereign power to say, "I can do whatever I want today." It is the ability to walk away from a toxic boss, to ignore an obsolete corporate hierarchy, and to completely insulate your family from the chaos of a collapsing economy. When you allow the allure of a safe salary to dictate your life, you are trading your future sovereignty for a cheap, temporary hit of predictability. You are playing a rigged, zero-sum game where the house always wins, but you have the power to opt out. You must conduct a brutal, clinical audit of your reality today. Are you deploying your energy to acquire decentralized assets that buy back your freedom? Or are you bleeding your life energy to fund a rented lifestyle, terrified of losing a job that is already slowly killing your potential? Poverty is not just a lack of money. Poverty is a series of reactive decisions driven by the desperate need for external validation and the illusion of safety. Wealth is a proactive, clinical architecture designed for absolute sovereignty. Stop funding the corporate scam. Starve your ego. Acquire code, build media, and construct your permissionless leverage in total silence. Become the architect of your own escape. Hit the subscribe button to join the minority building true financial sovereignty. But before you go, the debate is open. Be brutally honest. Is your monthly salary actually giving you financial freedom, or is it just enough to keep you coming back to a job you merely tolerate? Defend your reality in the comments below. Let's see who actually understands the math of the trap. Master your mind, build your system. See you in the next protocol.